Greetings in the mighty name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First, Jah Rastafari, and I Divine Mother Empress Menin. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be accepted in I sight, O Jah. Greetings, ones and ones. Once again, thanks for lending I ears so I can articulate Rastafari and speak Rastafari through the lens of Rastafari. No. This is me call this word sound here. Let's call it the second edition to we are going to define now what is a field slave. And it goes like this. What is a field slave? Slaves who are tasked with the hardest of labor in the field or plantation or a farm. These slaves were forced through brutal measures like sodomy, mutilation, beating, and death, just to learn how they should conform and respond to the will of their masters subserviently. Because of the fear of consequences, the field slave will go along pretending until the time is right. Then they revolt like Nat Turner, 1831, and Denmark Vesey, 1822. The attitude of resistance have never changed from then until now. Excuse me. The field slave psychology is one who exists within the system but not a part of the system. This is why when there are riots, they have no qualms in destroying the community. They don't view the community as their own, but an extension of the plantation. So destroying it is easy. Easy to do. What you do not own, you care zero about. Exhibiting disassociative behavior, leaving their communities in shambles and in deplorable conditions, believing they are destroying or hurting the white man's system. Another point from the field slave perspective is the English language. They created their own way of communication, utilizing the English language so they can communicate amongst themselves to the exclusion of the house slave and master. From then until now, the field slave will always have their own way of communication within the English language. Also, there will always be upgrading of speech pattern and terminologies, creating languages like Patois, Creole, so-called Ebonics, saying, "What up, my nizzle?" meaning, "What up, my nigga?" "We are brave," mean we are living it up. Express Jamaican Patois, street talk. Expressed through the street parlance, carry over into rap and dancehall trap music. Rastafari have their own remixing of the English language called Irish. It is changing up of English words to create a more harmonious word sound that is balanced in speech and sound, leaning towards a positive vibration. I, meaning us, or we. Overstand is understand. Appreciate love is appreciate, etc. etc. The English language was forced upon us in the diaspora. I remix it to suit I communicative endeavors. I do not care about what English means to the mainstream. When I communicating with I peers, I will tailor English to convey I word sound. Just a little sound to those ones and one that don't get that I is not trying to fit into no allotted box of how they want us to think or how they think we should be. However, in an academic or business setting, English will be used as intended. I am not averse to education, just more inclined to knowledge. With knowledge you can build or destroy. You hear that? With knowledge, you can build or destroy. The modern day version of the field slave is the entrepreneurial street mindset, always creating informal ways of earning money outside of what masters dictate, sometimes to their own detriment, cause the system and their think tank specialists will create, design, and set traps for them, like weaponizing rap slash dancehall music, paying artists millions to glorify crime and violence, by cultivation and encouraging the destruction of their own through word sounds and music, while getting paid self-destruction, financed by music and media corporation moguls who are responsible for the distributing and peddling black self-destructive images while making callous billions at the expense of thousands of young black youths dying and going to prison. Excuse me. Then they come out on their media platforms announcing their philanthropic endeavors in sounds and charitable wickedness like they care. Drugs and guns are not made in the ghettos of America, Jamaica, nor the Caribbean. They can destroy the likes of Saddam and Gaddafi far away in the Middle East, North Africa, but they cannot stop black youths from having access to drugs and guns. Wonder why? I will tell you. According to the United States Constitution 13th Amendment, only when you are convicted in prison, punishment, you can be classified as a slave. How do you continue slavery? Create laws like the United States Arbitral Offenders Law, known as the Three Strike Rules, implemented around 1953, meaning if you have been convicted more than 3 times for a serious felony, you can mandatorily be sentenced to life in prison, with or without parole. Do you see how they create laws to continue their inherited legacy from white supremacy? No, the Jamaican-led government crime act just implemented 15 years mandatory prison term for a gun. They are gearing up for their share of private prison industries. Sadly, the Jamaican populace will be duped because crime is out of control. Too much violence, too much death. They will gladly sign and support in the name of crime prevention. However, not until one of their good boy or girl get caught, they will see the trap. The entrepreneurial field state will be trapped by these strategies called laws. Their desire for upward mobility. They engage in drugs and guns, which equates to violence. Guns are utilized in robberies and guns are utilized for defense, all because of slavery starting from zero, wanting the finer things in life that they showed is attainable through their media outlets, refusing to continue as 9 to 5 slaves, choosing illegality. They found themselves trapped for life in prison, industrial complexes, modern slavery, putting noose around their own necks for the mastermind of crime in their think tank. It is just business as usual, while we are no doubt actively facilitating our destruction through black and black violence glorified through our music. The liberals and the philanthropic investment screams Black Lives Matter like they really care. But they are just band-aid that cannot stop wounds from festering. The field slave psychology is an evolution of learned behavior interaction with the poor undesirables from Europe, Spanish, Portuguese, English, German, France, Jews, Italians, etc. The Homestead Act of 1860 gives some of these immigrants land, 168 acres specifically for farming opportunities to create generational wealth through land possession. Note, slavery way in effect, which disqualifies, slavery was in effect, which disqualifies slaves. Slaves had no rights. 13th Amendment, emancipation, 14th Amendment, so-called full citizenship, and 15th Amendment, rights of vote. So, these are the amendments that basically give black people equal status, so-called equal status. And let me repeat again. the land grant where the white immigrants them get access to create generational wealth for them. That means wealth transfer from them to them children. Black slaves or black kids, black people had no rights at the time, so them not have access to land, and them can't create generational wealth. So hence again the continuation and the structure of destruction when them place them in by showing them everything. Imagine you as one who you see all of the wealth around you and everybody have upward mobility, and the only way them are gonna tell you say you can progress is through 9 to 5. And in some instance, yes, 9 to 5 only affords you basic amenities. You'll never gather wealth because you can't even, the truth be told, you can't even buy a house, especially in a place like Jamaica. You have to go through a whole heap of things to try to get a house, and you have a skill to actually get a house in Jamaica. Maybe in America it's a little bit more easier, but nonetheless you're still strapped with mortgage probably transfer from you to your kids and to your kids' kids. Now, these are the things where are the vestiges of slavery. You see? Now, let me continue with the reasoning. The diaspora only received promises and dreams, received no land, nothing after so-called emancipation. They again had to start from zero. Excuse me. Only continued victimization through technology, orchestrated in their thought to action, think tank. Because of your ignorance, not knowing, you become an active participant in your own victimization. The consensus would say it is your fault. It is your fault. It is your fault. It's your choice. You know right from wrong. This would be presented fact. But is it truth? These black intellectuals will highlight artists' contribution to crime and violence, but seldom blame the corporation who are responsible for such music permeating the airwaves, distributing through their media outlet in most urban centers. Though they are the biggest benefactors as owners and distributors, whether death or prison, they are profiting. If black-skinned Europeans do say something, they would say it is black and black violence destroying the community. This statement would be facts, but what about causation? Who are responsible for allowing this? Again, these black intellectuals would say it is your fault. You had a choice. You know right from wrong. What about those who allow drugs and guns? They don't know right from wrong. Intellectual black skin will never blame the true culprit, the system of white supremacy. But this position would be intellectualized away as race hustle and victimology, according to Mr. Thomas Sowell, aka Mr. Extraordinaire, Mr. Intellectual Juggernaut, or simply a modern house slave. What is the social engineering process of slaves and how it is done? Captives were taken from Africa and turned into slaves, then were taught they had no rights as human beings. They are equivalent to horse and cows, animals. They are subjected to the harshest of punishment, even death, to ensure they understood their status. They were given Christian names and religion as part of their initial education process of becoming a good Christian. The Bible was used to reinforce masters and slave relationship. Example, slave, obey your master, for it is the will of God. Ephesians 6 verse 5 to 8. And slave, be subject to your master with all reverence. 1 Peter 2 verse 18. Slaves can only know their master's God. Any other God is punishable by death. From religious indoctrination, they eventually graduated to secular knowledge of how to read and write. The education program to the house slave is viewed as the way to better jobs, upward mobility. The field slave frown upon this as continued servitude, preferring to create their own informal entrepreneurial endeavors, be it positive or negative means for upward mobility. What is white supremacy? Superiority and dominance of whites above all other so-called races. To justify white superiority against black, the science of eugenics was employed to support white supremacy and black inferiority. The likes of Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, survival of the fittest, Francis Galton, the man who coined the phrase eugenics and wrote Hereditary Genius, Richard T. Ely, Edward A. Ross, Francis A. Walker, Madison Grant, the art of the passing of the great race, George Creel, H.L. Mencken are some of the progressive intellectuals who are responsible for propagating the idea of undesirable black Africans. This was done to rationalize, justify slavery. Note, Jews, Italians, Spanish, Greeks, and Irish were considered undesirables too by the Alpine Nordic race, or white Anglo-Saxons, so-called pure whites, before they were upgraded under the blanket of whiteness. Why? Because the blood of the black ones like Memnon, king of Ethiopia, Greek myth, Septimus Severus, the black emperor of Rome, 193 to 211 AD, Hannibal the Great Barca, 247 to 183 slash 181, and the Black Moors of Islam, 711 to 1492. Blood coursed through their veins. Their diabolical behavior against Africans did not reflect good Christian values, so the inferior African beast was created to justify chattel slavery. Prognosis of slavery is the root cause to the post-traumatic slave disorder displayed by the diaspora. This leads to African slave identity crisis, ASIC, or African slave identity disorder, ACID. This is why now you have some of the diaspora identifying all other groups like Hebrew, Muslim, Moors, indigenous, aborigines, etc., etc., refusing the African connection. One cannot blame them. Who wants to be associated with weak and civilized Africans as propagated by Europeans? Beyond pigmentation, the house slave and field slave got one thing in common: slavery and white oppression, and both learned and adopt certain mannerism from white people. This is why Rastafari will always propagate knowledge of self, is the reclaiming of I&I identity, which is one of the steps that leads to black unity. This is why I&I, Rastafari, is advancing the name N.I.A. for the new name of the black continent, so-called Africa. N.I.A. represents I&I as the people who give life to the world. All the scientists say so. Moreover, it is a name free from all stigma. Call it positive affirmation or renewal. Just like Rastafari, you know what I mean? A year old. It is created from the sovereign minds of Rastafari for I&I, the N.I.A. Rastafari family. Especially when you are told over and over again, Africans sold you into slavery, Africans contributed zero to the civilization of humanity. I&I is a static lot that has barely evolved, primitive primates. These are some of the sounds from European indoctrinators foisted upon the diaspora to foster hatred and resentment against Africa, or African disconnection. The same way they play the house slave against the field slave, their continuous efforts to divide and rule. It's strategically designed to prevent black unity overall. Continental and diaspora are one and the same, separated by geography. It is the divisive mindset that is keeping us apart, which white supremacy continues to exploit. It was the tribal psychology that got us here to begin with. Knowledge of self and where you stand in the struggle will dislodge European parasitical attachment. Rastafari is the solution. The immoral science of eugenics was created to justify slavery and superiority of whites over black and all other races. The one-drop rule was also implemented to designate and regulate blackness. The United States Constitution declared black people to be 3/5 of a white man. There is no comparison to the sufferers and the diaspora endured. Seems like their wickedness against black is more than just the idea of race. It is from this struggle birth Rastafari, tying I to the agency of Ethiopia, Africa, reclaiming I identity, declaring I own black God, Jah Rastafari, in our image and likeness of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. As a man, the perfect role model for I, God, King, Emperor, ruler of I. Destiny. I destiny is the young nation, black continent, so-called Africa. Yes, ones and ones. Thanks again for the time, for lend, ears, and I hope this word Sonia is very informative, because as usual, it's all about the knowings, and when I present the information, it's for the young lion and lioness them to know when them declare Rastafari and what Rastafari is all about. And Rastafari will always bring the knowledge so you can overstand and get knowledge yourself. And even put in the direction where you can even add on to I. Passing on information. Yeah, man. And get into the knowledge yourself. Knowing a Rastafari is yours and none can take it from you. Yes, I. Until such time, may the Most High Jah Rastafari continue to guide and protect I itinerary. Rastafari live and reign in I. Now when I say one aim is Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. I destiny, repeating again, is to return to the black space, the black continent, so the N.I.A. continent, so-called Africa. So I go seal it with that. Jah Rastafari without apology. Sealer.